Alright, welcome to this special presentation of the Krypton Report Roundtable review of Man of Steel. And here we are at the dawn of Justice, and we're going to take a step back 3 years ago and just kind of discuss Man of Steel. Now, the interesting thing, and I've thought over this for a little while now, and just so you know, my usual host here, Jania.
What's up, guys?
And then Mr. Chris Johnson is here as well.
I know, I'm back. You all wanted me.
One of the biggest things, like I thought about this, is I think Man of Steel is going to have a weird vibe to it, in the sense of it wasn't made to be the start of the DC cinematic universe. It was a very Nolan-fied, air quote, Superman story. It wasn't geared to be the start. I mean, technically, you got to think, Man of Steel came out in June of 13, but it was supposed to come out December of 12.
Yeah.
And while this was being filmed, they also had, The Dark Knight Rises and works, and Green Lantern. Green Lantern was supposed to be their jumping off point for the DC cinematic universe, because originally they wanted Henry Cavill to make a cameo in it when the Ring was searching for someone to wear it.
Yeah.
But they said no, they wanted to keep it separate.
Well, and I'm glad they did, because really, Green Lantern does not fit the vibe or the theme at all.
No, it doesn't.
No, the movies would not gel at all.
No.
And that's why
Completely different.
I think they had the premiere in New York last night, and Jeff Johns made a quote about this being the first DC Cinematic Universe film. Mm-hmm. And, technically Man of Steel is, but at the same time, like I said, it wasn't made to be. They threw in that cameo of the Wayne satellite just to tease us.
Yeah.
But, that's very easy to fix in post.
Well, and one of the buildings collapsing is a Wayne Enterprise building.
But we didn't know it in the film.
We didn't know it in the film, but we do now.
So, they peppered in BVS to work with Man of Steel, which is great. But like I said, Man of Steel is going to be that kind of the look, the colors, everything is going to be very different, I think, going forward. You're going to look back on it and be like...
from a Batman-heavy film, I think that makes sense. But from a Superman-introduced film, the movie itself just always felt grayscale to me. It lacked the severity and color. It lacked the pride of the reds and the blues and the golds. They were there, but they were always muted to me.
And I don't have a problem with muting it. It was more of... But I said this was being done as the Dark Knight trilogy was ending, they were starting Superman in that vein.
Yeah.
But it wasn't time.
Well, yeah. But this never, to me, Man of Steel, and I'll be blunt and honest, it's not my favorite. I don't like it. I watched it a handful of times. But to me, Man of Steel never felt like a Superman film. It felt like a Jor-El film. It always felt more about the father than the son. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in BVS, to see, because we're just based on the teaser trailers, we're getting into more of what Superman does and how the world's accepting him and how is that going. So I'm hoping that builds up more to that all-American hero, all-American boy, bringing justice, bringing that Boy Scout feel to everything.
Yeah, and it's the same thing as like I said, they made this film and this, there is a comparison there of Man of Steel to Batman Begins.
Yeah.
Because like we talked about earlier, Batman Begins was the first time I watched it, I was like, this is okay. Yeah. It's grown on me, but it doesn't feel as much like a Batman movie at first because it was so much not Batman.
Yeah. I almost feel like, even now, I feel like Man of Steel probably resonates with you than Jania more because of Solomon, your child.
Oh my God. Once you have a kid, you can't watch the beginning. Yeah. We actually skipped the beginning the other night.
Yes, we did. I did not want to cry.
Just because you put that in perspective more and everything. And one thing to say real quick is, I think in a lot of ways, everything you said about Man of Steel is because Man of Steel was such a reaction, antithesis of what Superman Return was.
Yeah.
In 2005, we got Batman Begins, which was perfect. But for some reason, Warner Brothers, instead of thinking the same lines, the next year they released Superman Returns, which is a continuation of the Donner films. And, and Man of Steel was, like we were saying, it's the complete antithesis of that. Everything that movie was, they wanted to try to be the opposite.
Well, the thing I appreciate about Superman Returns, and Return of Superman, same thing, it's the fact that it does have that throwback vibe. It does feel like an older film. It does feel like a Donner film. But at the same time, it wasn't the right formula.
No.
And I even hesitate to say that I don't think Man of Steel was the right formula either. But I like what you're talking about, the fact that it is a launching point for potential more. Mm-hmm. Because let's look at this. If Man of Steel had been a bit more colorful, a bit less dramatic, a bit less violent or whatever, then we get into Batman versus Superman, that's going to make the transition even harder.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I do appreciate what they did with it, especially now that it is continuing into the saga. But I just felt like it always missed the mark.
I feel like it's going to kind of come together more now that we do have Batman v Superman. It might be one of those things where we look back at it and we're like, okay, this by itself is a standalone, maybe not so much.
No.
But, as being the first film to introduce this universe, it could really work. It just depends on the angle they go.
One thing about it was, of course, you had David Goyer writing this after, and he wrote it solo, which I feel like David Goyer is the idea guy, but you always need someone to polish his script.
Well, that's when they brought in Nolan.
Well, Nolan and him wrote it together, like the story together, but he wrote the whole script solo.
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Ben Affleck did a lot of script writing.
Well, BVS.
Right?
Ben Affleck they're kind of talking about, I'm not sure. He hasn't quite, he's trying to deny that he's done some work, but at the same time. But that's when they brought in Chris Terrio from Argo, Affleck did, to fix the BVS script, because originally it was David Goyer, and they were like, we're going to fix this. And I was like, good job. Goyer, he's given us such great films as Ghost Rider 2, The Crow 2.
Oh, God.
The Blade trilogy.
Real winners.
I think, though, to be fair to Goyer here, okay, I think that he had some good concepts. The concepts were there, but the execution just wasn't as strong.
Goyer would be better as a graphic novel writer.
Okay, yeah.
And he's done graphic novels.
I don't think he's a great film writer.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to see, because my fear of BVS was my fear of Man of Steel. The possibility of putting too much in one movie.
Well, see, my fear of BVS is it's going to be, will it fall into an Iron Man 2 or an Amazing Spider-Man 2, where they try to put too much into it. But looking back, just, Man of Steel, just kind of focusing, it was neat because of the idea they didn't use kryptonite. There was the whole atmospheric thing, and I think that's going to be kind of retconned in this one, because we have the scene of Lex looking at a green rock.
Well, that, and I also think you have to remember that the way it looks, at least to me, most of the fighting in the BVS trailer takes place in Gotham.
Yeah.
Gotham is a dark city. Most of the stuff's going to take place at night, takes place during a lot of the rain. So, powers are going to be diminished on Superman's side because of that anyway.
That's very true.
Now, one thing with Man of Steel that I always thought was kind of funny was how outraged people were about the costume change.
I like the costume.
I thought it was awesome.
And I'm okay with the costume. I don't need... it kills me that... I was alive in 89, but I wasn't old enough to know any of the Batman stuff going on. Or did we get the same kind of reaction on Michael Keaton, his solid black costume for Batman, that we did just because they removed the Superman trunks? People are freaking out that much about him? Well, because go back and watch Superman Returns.
Yeah.
And you see the trunks, and you're kind of like, that does feel awkward.
What I find interesting about the Man of Steel costume, though, is Zack Snyder was quoted about when he came up and designed the Superman logo specifically for this film. It was actually based off of 1950s and 1940s war propaganda. And you have to think about the time that Superman would have come to Earth. That's something that would have been in his history books. It would have been that classic Bronze Age vibe about it. So there's a lot of research that went into the purposing of this costume. And really, I'm just glad the boy shorts went away.
Exactly. Like, I liked.
I mean, as a kid, I don't mind running around with my underwear outside my pants, but as an adult, I mean, I want people to take me seriously while I'm kicking alien butt.
I think it was more of a visual aesthetic thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it didn't bother me. I think the problem is we got, and this is for all Superman. I'm talking Smallville, Lois and Clark.
Yeah.
We got this iconic Donner film, the first two.
Yeah.
And we've never been able to let that go. In our imagery, in any other Superman media, it's always been Donner-esque. I mean, Man of Steel established itself trying to really break free from that and look more at the comics. And then Snyder's quoted as saying, everyone thinks I changed Superman. Well, obviously you've never read a comic. And in a lot of ways, he's right. Yeah. Because, he's looking at the modern Superman comics and the stories, and he's bringing that into his... And people are still looking back at Chris Reeves. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that, but the idea is, the character of Batman we've been able to accept changing a lot more through each incarnation, but with Superman...
Well, look how many Batman films we've had.
Exactly.
I mean, but to be fair, Superman is an American staple.
Exactly.
Like, he is an icon. He has been for years.
The thing I find interesting, and it's a different opinion than the Patrick family, but I don't like Superman as a hero. Because to me, there's not a lot that can happen to him.
Chris is getting beat up. Did you punch him in the face?
He can manipulate a lot of things just based on his power source, and his weaknesses are very rare. They're very hard to find. So for me, Man of Steel, although it's a new take on Superman, I didn't care because I'm not a huge Superman fan. But looking back on the series of how things changed, different comic book series, Justice League alone, there's a lot of room to bend there, but yeah, it goes back to the fact that people do have to allow themselves to be like, oh yeah, Superman doesn't always have to be one thing. It's not always apple pie,
Right.
One thing with Man of Steel that kind of bothered me, like Jeannie and I rewatched it the other day and discussed it, was I hate that it starts on Krypton. I almost would have liked the film to have started with that boat scene.
Yeah.
And then, like, Krypton's in flashbacks. You kind of, or something like Clark discovers Krypton, and maybe you don't even show Krypton in this movie.
Yeah.
You bring Krypton in the second movie, because that goes back to the pacing of the Donner movie. Mm-hmm. Like, it's been said that Man of Steel was like a combination of Superman and Superman 2. Yeah. Because he's fighting Zod. And I'm like, you know what? I am drawing a blank right now, and forgive me, but there's a comic where Superman first meets Zod, and they're friends. Mm-hmm. Because he's finally met somebody, and then Zod reveals himself to be bad. Yeah. I kind of almost would have liked that vibe.
I wish, honestly, I wish Hollywood and screenwriters would allow us to be smart enough to understand the origins of Superman and Spider-Man. We don't always have to see Uncle Ben die. We don't always have to see Krypton explode. It's been shoved down. I mean, let's look at this. My mom, before she passed, was never a comic book fan, was never a Superman fan, never saw a single movie, but she could tell you the entire origin story of Superman.
Yeah.
Because everyone knows it. So, why spend the first hour of a film in between, scene after scene after scene with this story? We already know it. Skip it. Or like you said, put it in a second film, put it later on, give us something later on to motivate it. But
I liked, I'm indifferent. Like, I like Russell Crowe's Jor-El, but he's not who I wish would have been cast. I remember when they first talked about it, and it was Snyder was in the work, and I sat there and I was hoping, because this actor had just worked in a small role with Snyder in Sucker Punch, but I wanted John Hamm to be Jor-El so bad.
I think Hamm's too young.
You could make him look a little older,
I know.
But Jor-El doesn't have to be old. Like, they always depict him as being old. He can be 25, 30. I mean, John Hamm's 40.
True.
You know what I'm saying? To have a son, an infant child, I don't know. That's just me nitpicking. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, one of the things that I noticed about Man of Steel, because, in the beginning, when I first started watching Man of Steel, I really, really enjoyed it. Going back and watching it again, I'm noticing more and more, little things with it. You know what I mean? Like, I've always had this feeling of, there's just something slightly off about Man of Steel, and I couldn't figure it out. Well, the other night, Tyler and I were watching it in preparation for Batman v Superman, and one of the things that caught my attention, I mentioned to Tyler, was the fact that the movie is made up of a bunch of segments.
Yeah. There's no cohesive story.
Exactly. It's very jumpy and popping everywhere, and
some of the transitions are just really odd.
Yeah.
Where they go, and it feels like when it transitions, it's a new segment.
Let's focus on even just the one that almost made me leave the theater was Lois Lane is in a plane, and then all of a sudden Superman lands in a random building in a gigantic city that you don't know where he is at all because he's literally inside of a building and she is just magically there. Does she have a tracking device on this person like a freaking child?
No, you mean where he falls into the station and she's like super far away?
Yeah, and all of a sudden
she's there.
She's walking down with her hair blowing in the wind, not sweating on anything. No, you couldn't even get a taxi across town at this point, let alone just be like, that building, I'm going to go to this.
Mm-hmm. I have higher hopes for Batman v Superman than I did Man of Steel.
I do too.
I'm really hoping here. I think,
but there's a lot of jumps. There's a lot of in-betweens that don't feel connected.
Right. Me even, stating all of this about Man of Steel, I still very much so enjoyed it.
I enjoy it, but it's one of those movies that sometimes
people like it.
Sometimes I don't feel like watching the whole movie. I just want to watch scenes.
Yeah.
I tried watching the whole thing again. I honestly couldn't. I picked a handful of stuff, and I'm like, these are the ones I want to focus on. Here's
the things that really I didn't like in Man of Steel. The whole Codex thing.
Yeah.
That whole subplot with
Let's create a brand new Krypton, guys.
Why does Zod want to create a new Krypton? I'm okay with the idea of him wanting to rule the planet as gods.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you want to build Krypton on Earth when you could build it on another planet?
Yep.
You want to build it on Earth so all the Earthlings die and you're back to being weaklings?
I look at it as the Planet of the Apes theory. Let's go back. Let's go to the new origins of Planet of the Apes with Caesar.
Okay.
Caesar could just be Caesar. And let's be honest, if he left him the way it was, he probably would have became some sort of political something, some sort of powerful thing, because he's the first monkey ever to talk. He's the first monkey to ever be educated, okay? But he takes the opportunity to create an army of people to follow him. So Zod, easily enough, if he destroys Superman, could take over the world, but with an entire army of Kryptonians, he'd keep the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I didn't like the whole dream sequence where he's in Cal's dream. I thought that was kind of odd. Things I do like, though. I do like that they, right off the bat, Lois figures out who Clark is, and they establish a different dynamic.
It's so easy to figure out.
Did you see the video that Henry Cavill put up of him walking around Times Square?
Yes.
Where nobody recognizes him. He's even wearing his Superman t-shirt.
It's so ridiculous.
And he said the glasses aren't going to work. But
it's pretty funny.
But you know what I'm saying? Just because, like I said, we're breaking that Donner chain.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to move forward with a different dynamic.
Well, we're jumping out of the 1950s and we're coming into a modern age.
Just like they've done with the Flash and Arrow, where a lot of people around him know the identity.
Yeah.
Flash I get because of the cow and the voice changer and the messing of the face, but Arrow I don't understand how you don't know that's Oliver Queen.
Shadows. Technically he's always supposed to be like hiding, like turned sideways in the shadows.
I'm always in the I just bring shadows with me.
Now, one big thing that people brought up about this film was all the destruction.
Oh my god, they destroy an entire city. Say what you want about Avengers, they destroy all of Metropolis.
No, if you watch, they don't. Like, if you look at the shot...
Dude, look at the World Devastator. It destroys a minimum 3/4 of the city.
No, like, go back and watch it again. Like, you'll see, it doesn't destroy as much as you think.
It destroys enough for Lex Luthor to buy Metropolis, which, by the way, Batman vs. Superman will have Lex Luthor in a real estate scam. Again, it's the only thing this man can do.
Let's also point out... But the only scene that I really hated with the whole violence is where Zod kicks the fuel truck at Superman.
Good God.
And he, like, floats up in between them.
Mm-hmm.
And it blows up the, parking garage behind him. I'm like, kind of a douche move there.
You could have stopped it. Could have stopped it, didn't.
Or you know what he didn't use in that? He better use a super breath. Okay?
Or is that one of the powers he didn't discover in a janitor's closet when he was a kid?
Trying to hit all the high points. Like, the destruction didn't bother me, but okay. So
I tell you what, though, they had to have Metropolis has had to have experienced something terrible in the past because they evacuated the crap out of that city really fast.
Well, here's the thing. With the Metropolis being destroyed, with Luthor and Wayne rebuilding it, that's how I see it becoming more of what's supposed to be the city of tomorrow.
Well, yeah.
But here's my other point is... crap, you made me forget.
Well, while you're trying to remember...
Did the World Engine not do, damage that stayed with the Earth?
Oh, had to have.
You know what I'm saying?
Had to have.
I really feel like there's going to be some retconning in the new film of just some of these side stories that don't really matter.
Have you not heard the Green Lantern theory about the World Devastators?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is great. So there's a theory floating around the internet right now that says because the World Devastators, the way they worked by, polar opposites, it shifted the Earth just enough that it put it in turmoil, so it actually opened up the sector for the Guardians of Oa to finally come into Earth's sector to fix everything.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I like that.
So
Now,
we'll see what happens, but that's why they have to pick a Guardian at this point, so they'll either pick Jon Stewart or Hal Jordan.
there's two more big points here.
I hope so.
There's two more big points to hit here, and we're running low on time. I think we needed more Pa Kent, because they were trying to do a new take on Pa Kent, but they didn't give us enough of it to find out if we really liked him. I don't mind that he died in a tornado.
He could have died sooner.
I just hate the way they did it, because I think it would have been better if you saw him and Clark both taking people out, and they're running, and Clark thinks his dad's behind him, and he turns and sees his dad running back, and his dad gets taken.
They spent so much time on Kal-El in this film instead of focusing on, Pa Kent. So for me, I never felt a connection to either his mom or his dad, if I'm being completely honest, because they're tertiary characters in Man of Steel. I understand the impact that they were going for, but the emotional baggage didn't exist for me.
See, I do have to say, though, I did love the casting.
No, casting's great.
I thought Diane Lane was awesome, and I thought Kevin Costner was great.
Casting is great, and I just wish there was... If you're going to give me the origins already, give me something more to grab a hold of. Okay, so I felt more empathy for Diane Lane because of that beautiful scene with Clark in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but if you had transitioned that scene and made it Pa Kent, that whole tornado scene would have been way more deep for me.
My thing is, you're going to give me the Earth. You're going to give me Pa Kent, who's supposed to be a huge influence in these little flashbacks, and I don't think we'll see that in this film. Maybe another film we'll see another Pa Kent flashback. But just
can I tell you what I really hope we see? I really hope you see a genuine moment between Superman and Batman, where Batman recollects the story of his parents dying in front of Superman or Clark Kent hears the story and then can empathize because they both went through the same turmoil.
That would be awesome. Now, one more thing. We got two more points real quick. Mm-hmm. Jania brought this up. How are the Kryptonians having powers when they're in their Kryptonian armor?
Good Lord. And only 30 minutes after being on Earth.
Well, I kind of was
so...
it's supposed to be effects of the yellow sun. They should absorb it and feel it. But I understand they didn't have all their powers but the same thing is, if it's the Earth's atmosphere, their suits are providing them
with the Kryptonian
life support. They should have had.
If their suits are not strong enough to hold out radiation, they would have died a lot sooner.
So that was, and it took me this long to think of that, but I felt dumb. I was like, okay, you're right.
I always wanted, General Zod, his captain, and everybody, and his whole team. I think it would be interesting to find out that certain Kryptonians can't actually absorb or handle Earth's yellow sun like it's a genetic thing.
Yeah.
So it would have affected all of them differently. That's what I would have liked to have seen, but that's just me.
Now, the last point is what a lot of people had issue with: Superman killing Zod.
Oh, God, I don't care about that. I just wish he would have done it a different way.
That's kind of like breaking the neck was the part that I was just kind of like, wow. But if you go back and you watch Christopher Reeve, Superman 2, and Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, even though he reverses time, he throws a powerless Zod down an abyss.
Yeah, which is way more better.
Which, think about it, he killed him. But it was in a funny way.
Yeah.
He breaks Zod's neck in a brutal scene, and everyone freaks. And I feel like that's going to play into his moral code. But
I will say this: I appreciate what they attempted to do with Henry Cavill breaking Zod's neck and everything. But there's so much intense fighting between the two of them the entire time that, to me, the neck break, it just feels like it just feels lessened.
Yeah. Final thoughts, Drew? Chris, final thoughts?
Final thoughts is it's a movie that you should see prior to seeing BVS, obviously. It's a movie you should see and should have in their catalog if you're a DC fan. But if you're looking for a cohesive story, if you're looking for something that's more memorable to you, I don't think it's one to keep.
And, it's good. Maybe over time it'll be more grow, but I just feel like...
It's like a bad vacation.
It wasn't fully thought out. Or, like I said, I think it's one of those... I think Man of Steel suffers because of Superman Returns.
Now, like I said, I have a lot of hope for it. I have a lot of hope for the future. I think
you're a Superman fan, you should have hope.
Exactly. I'm a huge Batman fan too, but yeah, I like Superman a lot. I have a lot of hope that, maybe Batman v Superman will be the glue for Man of Steel,
And I agree. And you can tune in soon for our Batman v Superman review. You guys have a good night. Remember, look up in the sky.